Hello and welcome to SciLux, the podcast where we talk about scientific developments and technological changes in Luxembourg. And this episode is proudly powered by Research Luxembourg, and we are recording at the Media Center of the University of Luxembourg, which means today with us there is a Luxembourg-based researcher, and the researcher is Professor Valérie Schafer. Valérie Schafer is professor in contemporary European history at the C2DH, Luxembourg Centre for Contemporary and Digital History, in case you don't know, but I'm sure you know because there have been quite a few guests with us, of course, at the University of Luxembourg. She previously worked at the CNRS in France and is still an associate researcher at the Centre for Internet and Society. Her main research interests are the history of the Internet and the web, the history of European digital cultures and infrastructures, and born digital heritage. Valérie, thank you so much for coming today.
I'm very happy to be there, and thank you for inviting me, Anna.
You're welcome. So very often when I am summarizing the interests of the researchers, there's at least one term that I don't know, and it's the case with you as well, which is born digital heritage. I kind of can guess, but I'm not 100% sure, so I want to know what you specialize in. Could you tell our listeners what born digital heritage is, actually?
The notion of born digital heritage was defined in 2003 by UNESCO when they wrote a chart related to the digital heritage, because they wanted to differentiate between digitized and born digital resources. You can digitize a paper, a manuscript, a book, or something like that. But you have another part of the heritage which is already online. It may be databases, it may be online video games, it may be websites, and so on. So born digital heritage is related to all these kind of sources, archives, heritage that was previously already digital, like web archives, and that are entering or cultural heritage. So my specialty related to born digital heritage is really web archives. Since the mid-90s with Internet Archive in United States, but then with many national libraries, the websites have been archived and preserved. And it has also been the case since, I would say, when they did start, it's difficult to tell you. But with social networks, they then started also to archive Twitter and Facebook and so on. Not all the content, but here we have a born digital heritage. Yeah.
Okay, I understand. And, I'm very much the kind of internet-based community. I remember when it started, and I've been really living with it and discovering it and being present, but I'm not sure that all our listeners are. So actually these archives, some of them might even know they don't exist. So first of all, if they wanted to visit, is it so easy to just go and find something?
Absolutely. It's very easy. You go on the Wayback Machine of Internet Archive, and here you will have the choice or enter a space which is preserving something like 900 billions of web pages since the mid-90s. Then it doesn't mean you will find exactly the web page or the content you are looking for several reasons. Because the web can't be archived every day for every website. So if you are looking for a very precise content, this web page that was on a website of a Luxembourgish journal, for example, in December 12, 2004, it is unsure that it has been archived. But for sure, you will find plenty of web pages related to this journal through years, and websites. There may be governmental websites, museums websites, institutional websites, but also many what we call vernacular content. It may be some blogs, some content that were developed by internet users like you and like me.
And who chooses to actually archive something?
That's an interesting question. It depends if you are talking about the national libraries or Internet Archive. Internet Archive has decided to try to archive the whole World Wide Web. So, of course, it was possible to imagine it in the mid-90s. Currently, there are so many web pages and social networks and so on. You can't archive everything on a daily basis. So they will decide to run crawls regularly on the websites they may identify, because sometimes they miss some websites. And they can decide if the robot will crawl the website, for example, every day or every month or 2 times per year or something like that. For national libraries, and we are talking, for example, of the BNL in Luxembourg, there is a national perimeter. So the BNL has the mission of archiving the Luxembourgish web. So they will define, based on their resources, technical, human resources, and so on, what they can do with the Luxembourgish web. They will have to identify the website based on the support of Restina and other domain providers. And then they will decide if they crawl a website again on a daily basis or 2 times per year. But their mission is to have something that is representative of what is happening on the Luxembourg web sphere, I would say. And same in France for the National Library, same with the UK Web Archives at the British Library, and so on. So they can decide, for example, that they want to crawl content which is developed in Germany, or they have rules, they have mostly a legal deposit and so on. And they have to follow this kind of rules, but then they have also some human curation and choices also to develop some special collections. For example, during the COVID crisis, BNL performed crawls related to the COVID crisis and what was happening online.
So as you are a historian of the internet, these archives are just extremely important to you, I guess.
It was fantastic. When I discovered these archives, it was around 2010. So it was 15 years ago, almost. You may be surprised saying, okay, but it was already developed since the mid-90s, as I told you. Yes, but it was quite unknown. There were very few researchers interested in these web archives, and the community is growing. And of course, for us, it's absolutely fantastic. You may have many approaches in the history of the internet and the web. I started by really studying the pipes and mortars and bricks, I would say, of the internet, so standards and technical issues and so on. And it was more an history related to engineers, the link to United States, how TCP/IP was developed and so on. And then, of course, I was interested also in content. That's where the web is coming. And I started trying to write an history of the web and all these web pages and websites and so on, not knowing about the web archives. And I would say this history is possible because you have a lot of sources in journals, in archives. The web was developed at CERN, so at the French and Swiss border. So you can find archives, but how to retrieve content? And suddenly, it was my colleague, an historian that you had a podcast with him a few years ago, Niels Brugger from Aarhus University, who let me know about web archives. And I entered the Wayback Machine, and it became, honestly, a passion to find these pages from the mid-90s with their old design, which was so handicraft and so cool, because the web has changed so much. Now we have WordPress, all the pages, they look not similar, but they have a design which is very close. But at the very beginning, you had these dancing babies, you had these stars and these banners and so on. It was so great.
And the colors, right?
Yeah, the colors of the old web is fantastic. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. It's great you mentioned this podcast because, well, I did interview Niels, I interviewed you as well. And of course, we will share a link in the show notes to this discussion because it's also very, very interesting. And as well, you can get some links to the web archives in case you can't find them. You can just click and then go and discover for yourself. But we are meeting today, of course, to talk a bit about internet, but more about the phenomena that is important because of the project that has just finished. The project is called HEVI, and it is about virality. So first of all, before we discuss virality in more detail, tell us, what is it really?
So our goal was to do an history of online virality, indeed. And we will probably go back to web archives at some point because for this kind of phenomena, web archives are not always expensive especially well suited. So it was a new methodological challenge. But what is virality? It will be so easy to give a simple or easy answer. And of course, a research community doesn't agree on the definition of virality. And this definition is different from the one from Wikipedia and from the dictionaries and encyclopedia. So for example, the Larousse, so a French dictionary, will say that it's a fast and unpredictable dissemination of a content online. So something which is fast, which is unpredictable, which will be disseminated very fast online. So you may think about many examples. It may be a picture that will make, at the time, in the mid-90s, it was making the buzz online, something that will circulate very fast. I slightly disagree with the Larousse, I would say, because I don't think it's so unpredictable. Sometimes we are surprised about something which is becoming quite popular. For me, for example, these challenges that started already 2 decades ago with the cinnamon challenges. You have to eat something which may be disgusting or very strange, or cinnamon or something like that. Then with other kind of challenges, like the milk crate challenge, and you have to try to go on a kind of mountain of milk. It may seem unpredictable because it's stupid for someone like me, probably not for my teenagers. But no, there is a whole genealogy of this kind of challenges, the ice bucket challenge and many others. And so it's not so unpredictable. But this kind of phenomena, they can really go viral very fast, circulate online through many platforms, through the web, through social networks, from TikTok to X to Facebook, at the same time in many areas, and having, of course, a big audience. Then the question is, what is the limit? Would we say that you are going viral because you have something like 1 million followers? There is no limit, because you can have viral phenomena that may seem small, but that are very meaningful for a community and will circulate for years and are in some ways private joke within a community or something that makes sense or is symbolic for a community. You may have massive phenomena that will last probably 2-3 years, and then there is another meme or another GIF or something that will make them forgotten. You have phenomena that may have a big audience over years because they are very regular and they are always coming back, like a prank which is called the Rick Roll. It's based on the song by Rick Ashley, Never Gonna Give You Up. I won't sing it. Maybe we can.
That's a pity.
But it has been used for years as a prank in platforms that have disappeared, like Wine, on Twitter at the time, on websites, and even used in advertising and so on, because it's something very popular, but it has become mainstream. At the very beginning, it was a bit more marginal and becoming a running gag then, but it's something that you will see occurring through the years, and so it's viral because it's also lasting. So ephemerality is sometimes something that we also consider as something inherent to virality. It depends. The recall is viral, but it's not ephemeral. It's coming back regularly. So you see why it's very difficult to give the perfect definition. But into virality, you have several things. Normally, big audience, trans-platform, communities. There is an audience, something which is also raising awareness in a world of economy of attention. It's creating buzz, click, and so on. And it circulates. It may be remixed. It may be also appropriated. It may have several meanings, especially for memes. We can come back to it a bit later on. And it may be very different. It may be amorous. It may be very serious. It may be political. It may be just kittens that are cute on the internet, or unicorns. It may be fake news. So a unique definition is difficult, but it's a fast phenomenon which is raising attention and reactions online, I would say.
Before I ask you more about it, I know that you prepared our pub quiz question. regarding virality and one special phenomenon.
I was the biggest meme of my day, a global craze that paved the way. From classrooms, offices to the street, I got the world up on its feet. I was followed by phenomena like the always swimming, but in some places I faced banning. A meme so big it shook the net. What viral phenomenon do you think you will get?
Perfect. Remember, answer only at the end of the podcast. But you mentioned memes also before. So what is actually a meme?
A meme, what they may not be aware of is that the word came before the online memes, because it was in the field of biology, genetics, that Dawkins defined this word in the mid-70s to describe some pieces of cultural elements that are circulating. It may be through media, but it doesn't have to be necessarily to a social network. But then the word meme went viral, I would say, and famous in the field of the first internet users and then web users and so on, as indeed a cultural element which is circulating, which is remixed, which is appropriated, which is transformed and so on. So we have many examples of these memes, and some are becoming now NFT, non-fungible tokens, because they are really part of our digital heritage, like Distracted Boyfriend or the Disaster Girl, also Distracted Boyfriend. You know, this is this guy with his girlfriend and looking at another woman in a red dress. For the Disaster Girl, which became an NFT and was also bought for a lot of crypto money, it's this small girl who is smiling with a face which we don't know what she's thinking, but in front of a house on fire. And it was a photo by our dad. And indeed, the house was not on fire. It was an exercise by firemen. But it became so famous to illustrate so many then things on the web. And I could, of course, mention many other memes that are famous. So we use constantly memes. They are part of our lives. Sometimes we see that it's a question also of generations, because the memes we knew, macro images with the funny cats, the lol cats, and I can have a cheeseburger and so on, or more and more we are reading in newspapers and that it's a thing for boomers and that the young generation is absolutely not into it. And indeed, it's true on TikTok, or it's no more the same way of making things viral and so on. But memes still exist. It's not because it's not a macro images that it's not a meme, because a meme it's something that is circulating. A video can be a meme, a picture, but a sound could be also defined as a meme.
That's interesting, because I always thought that meme is a picture. So it's eventually something that goes viral is a meme.
Yeah, but what will define it is also the fact that it's a piece that may be remixed, shared. For example, you have a famous movie. A lot of movie will become meme, and notably Matrix and the others or series that are popular. But for example, a movie can be very famous, but it's not because this movie is watched by many people that it is a meme. A meme, it's a small piece of this film, eventually a very short scene of the film that can be subtitled differently, where we will add a character that will circulate in another context and gain another meaning and so on. So it's about really appropriation, remixing, circulation and so on. So virality is not just about memes, because a famous hashtag, like in the Me Too movement, it's something viral. But this hashtag is not a meme. So you have several kinds of viralities. The picture of Alan Kurdi, this young boy that was photographed and became a symbol of the migrant crisis because he was dead on the beach. This famous photo is not a meme. It's a viral photo that circulated through the web. So you may have several kinds of viral content, and meme is just one part of it.
So now that you know how virality works, have you tried to test it yourself to make something viral?
Absolutely. So first, of course, historians of technologies are people of their time. If I had this interest in virality and in all this vernacular content, and it's because I was in some ways sensitive to this culture and interested in it. So of course, I was already using emoticons, memes, not that I'm putting every time memes in my email, but it's such a pleasure. It's a feel-good project in some ways, this EV project that was supported by the FNR for 3 years. And I was thinking, okay, I have worked on the digital traces of terrorist attacks. I have worked on the COVID crisis and so on. Now I want also to focus a bit on something that is also often making people just happy, sharing content, which may be, this cute kitten, something funny. And at the end, I can conclude that, of course, online virality is political, is full of challenges, is full of economics, of fake news, and many things. So it's not just about fun, but it's also about fun. So I was interested in this. And of course, you have a new look at this phenomena. I will just give you one example. We had our final conference with international colleagues, and the topic was past, present, and future of virality. And we had a look at the future, and notably at AI-generated images, because one of our interests is, does it convey the same kind of emotions? Will it change the way, the aesthetics of memes, of pictures? Probably yes. And we had a session kind of hands-on. There were several groups. One was studying the chain letters that started in the 30s. So you see that virality, when you have spam or you must share something to have peace with your friends for the eternity, or it started in the 30s through letter and postal mail. And another group was studying AI-generated memes. And I took part to it, and I started to see if it was also linked to the convention we know, if I like the aesthetics, and I asked if I could have a Baroque style for historians. And I was very surprised because they selected on ChatGPT a meme which was Doge. And Doge, the Shiba Inu, and the meme related to this dog is currently very famous because of the name of the department that Elon Musk got from Trump. And I was surprised thinking, is ChatGPT, by selecting this design, putting some political stuff into my meme? And so there is a lot to study there. I have no definite answer, but of course we play with this kind of meme. And another thing is that historians, they have their private jokes. So we have also history memes. And we published a book which is available online with De Gruyter, which is called Online Virality, with my colleague Fred Paillet. And here there is a chapter by one of our colleagues, Julia Göke, on history memes. And historians, they like to make joke about having Carlus Magnus or someone and text which is totally different from the tapestry or that,
And this is the interesting part you were mentioning, is that something can be extremely viral, but in a very small community. Yeah. I mean, I don't know whether the community of historians is small or big. I would assume it's not the biggest community online out there. So, yeah.
It's a niche joke. It's a niche community, of course. And for example, by comparisons to the video games communities, many memes that became very mainstream, for example, the famous all your base are belong to us, are coming from video games or video games communities and from Reddit and so on. So they start in communities and then they are going to become mainstream, and nobody remembers where it started. But there are communities that are very good at developing this kind of viral content, sometimes for the worst also, because on Reddit there has been also, very bad examples, of course.
I have to say that you have more knowledge about memes and virality than I do. And I was just thinking, where do you start? Like, how do you know that this is now viral? Or, because, you sound, of course, now it's this, and then it was that. Of course, I'm aware, like when you said AI-generated memes, I was thinking about the Pope right? Wearing that was big, right? That even I heard of, but there are many that I just haven't. This is totally not my world. So where do you go to know, okay, this is now viral?
That's a good question. First, when something is arriving on my social networks, normally it's that it's already a bit viral because I'm also not so much in niche community. So when it arrives to me, it has been produced. But I can't say, okay, it's just about my personal experience, of course, not at all. But for example, if you want to find many examples of viral phenomena and notably memes, you can go on this kind of encyclopedia, which is called Know Your Meme on the web. Be very careful because sometimes people think it's a kind of archive. No, it's a commercial platform, which is in a sphere that has developed and make a lot of money thanks to memes. And this consortium of several companies had also a cheeseburger. I mentioned the cats with I Can Have a Cheeseburger and all these communities and jokes around cats and many other platforms. So it's a business. We must also keep in mind that Virality is able to make people quite rich. And Know Your Meme is a commercial platform that will have, like Wikipedia, a lot of information related to this kind of phenomena. But the difference with Wikipedia is that it is a commercial platform and that they have editors and journalists and so on, and many bias in some ways in selecting their phenomena. Even if they try to be very large and it's very US-centric in some ways, you can see also sometimes political bias. I try to study a bit what they had selected as memes for the Ukrainian war. And it's very different from, for example, the memes that were selected by the people who created an online archive of cultural heritage of Ukraine based on the knowledge of Ukrainian people, librarians, and so on. And it's totally different. They don't have the same selection and curation at all. But Know Your Meme is a good element. Then you have some echoes of very famous phenomena in the traditional media. When, for example, the TV shows or the press is starting to speak about viral phenomenon, it is that it is extremely mainstream. And then you have also, to try to search. In our project, it was not just about all the mainstream viral content. Of course, there are some that are obvious. This phenomenon, you may remember about the dress. It was a dress. Some people could see a color. It was gold and black, and others could see it blue. And it was everywhere at the time, and even the scientists were discussing the color of the dress. And so it's obvious it was a viral phenomenon. But for some other, when you want to go into more local communities, or it's a bit different, and then you have also to try to select your own criteria. Is it ephemeral? How long does it last? Is it becoming part of the culture and internal references and jokes and so on? So it depends at which scale also you want to work.
Of course, and also the fact that it is constantly changing, right? The communities are changing and the virality is changing and adapting. That's so difficult to study, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree. I could have continued for 10 years or more because it's constantly changing when I was mentioning AI, but there are other things. Our project was about historicizing online virality. We could not cover everything, but we were interested in demonstrating that it has been something that was already there at the very beginning of the internet, even before the web, in fora and so on, and circulating in what was called at the time BBS, bulletin board systems, and collective discussions, that it changed over time. Because in the mid-90s, what was famous was the hamster dance. Our listener can go on the internet to see it was hamster dancing with a song that you can't forget for days. So be aware of it after listening to it one time. Or the dancing baby, this famous 3D dancing babies. It doesn't mean anything anymore to create a 3D dancing babies in 24. But at the time, the people, they were so excited about it that it circulated through emails, websites, and so on. Then we had, of course, a lot of changes, like, of course, social media, websites and social media, where you could share, make things circulate more and more. But you had also platforms to create memes. We should not forget about memes generators and so on. If we are able to create easily content, it's because we can use a lot of images, we can publish them easily, we can share them. So it was also a story of infrastructures, of technologies, of course, of people, users, and their changes of practices. But something key in our study is also really that platforms and infrastructures and moderation and curation and algorithm and so on make also virality possible, and that it has also developed over time. But, for example, we never went on the TikTok field. We could say it's a shame, but no, it was recent for us. It's a new, in some ways, platform. You can't just say, okay, I will go there. I don't know how it works, the audience. It's years, in some ways, of experience that allow you to understand also a platform, a community, the way they will share it. Twitter, for us, it was okay. X, I don't understand X anymore. I don't want to understand X. But Twitter, I was familiar with it. Facebook, it was also the case. Instagram was, why not? I'm exploring a bit this question of AI-generated content. But for example, for TikTok, we invited experts from several parts of Europe because they are experts in this platform. They can share their knowledge. But to understand what is becoming viral on TikTok and why it circulates from TikTok to another platform, you need to be a real expert. And we can't be expert of all platforms.
There's also one more kind of layer that I think we did not discuss, are the emotions. So how important are emotions for virality?
They are key. The emotion can vary very much. It can be humor, it can be that you are scared, it can be anxiety, it can be, it's not emotion, procrastination, but there are many reasons for spending time online and sharing content, but it rings a bell. If you are unable to understand or to find something in the meme. What is interesting is that a meme, for example, is very flexible. You change a sentence and it's very different. When you have, for example, these famous actors from The Office, from this famous series, because a lot is coming also from pop culture, video games, films, and so on. I like The Office. I may use it and select a sentence that will be very different from the one that my neighbor will select to illustrate something else. But just seeing these actors that I like and having immediately in mind The Office and make me happy with this meme. I give you one example. If you remember the boat that was stuck in the canal.
Yes.
Suez Canal, it was a few years ago, 21, if I remember well, the Evergreen. There were plenty of memes related to Evergreen, and when the boat was no more stuck in the canal, there were movements that was viral, niche movement, but interesting, and a lot of newspapers made also article. It was the Put It Back movement that was asking to put the boat back, and even eventually a second one, or because it was so reassuring to see all this capitalism stopping suddenly, or just because some people thought, okay, that's so funny. They had several reasons to ask for the boat to be back in the canal, but it was something that was creating emotions. And this boat stuck in the canal was creating emotion. For some people, it was the small machine trying to do something to deliver the boat. And you had a lot of comment, me and my work, the big boat being the work and me feeling so small, my dreams and my reality, and so many examples. So it was a kind of metaphor for people of emotions they had, and it's a way to express in what is not a simple manner. We could say it's very simple. It's just small is impactful. In this kind of small, you have so many layers of emotions, constructions, temporalities, and so on. It's a very complex object.
It reminds me also of tagging on Tumblr and how creative people can get.
And it's exactly what happened, for example, with the election of Trump, when he started to nominate ministers and some people were looking at it and saying, okay, it must be a bad joke because it was going worse and worse. And there was this meme of Godzilla jumping on a city and crashing everything and so on. And it was Trump last nomination, Godzilla, the Ministry for Buildings. So making joke of something that was making them extremely anxious, but expressing it in a way that is keeping distance. Here you can see how people can be, in some ways, also creative in expressing this kind of thing. I don't want to focus on Trump exclusively, but you may remember also about his sentence about Haitian migrants eating pets and dogs and how it became a viral song thanks to a South African guy who made a song. They are eating the dogs, they are eating the pets with the voice of Trump, and so on. And it was a way for me to criticize with a lot of humor, but something which is in some ways linked to racism, to something which is absolutely not funny at all, but to be very creative in fighting against this kind of sentences and ideas. And so, I think that there is a power and that memes can convey the worst and the best, but that sometimes you think people are so creative with so many small things.
That's true. I was sure that we will be talking so much about virality and memes, and we still have to touch upon the second project that you're just starting, right? I want to wrap up the memes thing because you said you had the conference and you were talking also about the future. So is there anything we can know where it's all going? I know you don't have the crystal ball right now, but just out of curiosity.
One of my dreams is to continue internationally. So we are currently writing an application, but you never know if it will be successful or not, which is linked to a topic which is a bit different, but emotions online. So not just emotions in virality, but how emotions have developed on the web and in digital media. And here there is so many things to study. So we will see. But of course, you can't just say, okay, I'm no more interested. No, this is a topic, a research topic I think keep for years. This grant was so important to create a team, to start this work and of course to do a lot. It's not just a start, but there are so many things that you wish to explore then and some things that you keep with you. And the international conference, there were so many international colleagues from France, from Italy, from the Netherlands and so on that are doing so many interdisciplinary, stimulating work that we had the feeling we have the community, we can't stop and just let it go.
And I'm also sure that now that you've become, the professor looking at virality, people keep coming to you here in Luxembourg. By the way, have you heard of this phenomena?
Yeah, but I'm not the professor because, as I told you, in many countries, and even at the University of Luxembourg, you have computer scientists, PhD students, and so on, who are also studying patterns in virality, trends in fake news, and so on. They are also experts in some way in virality. But for historians, I would say...
For historians, I meant for historians.
At the University of Luxembourg, I'm the one. But also at the university, there could be so many links, and we started with some colleagues. But no, this is a topic, honestly, which is not just interesting for me or for a few people. I think it is key to understand political phenomena, to understand disinformation and misinformation, but also to understand how people are able to go through a lockdown for years during the COVID crisis and stay connected and find some hopes and so on. So I think that's a topic which really is key for our societies.
Yes, for sure. It is something interesting. It's this parallel world where we inhabit as well, and that can lift us up, drag us down, right? And for some people, it's the world. So as there are so many people existing mainly there, it's definitely some place for humanities and for historians to look at. I'm sure about that. And we're moving to something else. I'm also excited. My listeners know that in general, IT and space get me excited. So as we have here history of IT in some way, we also have CD-ROMs. And first of all, Valérie, I assume that there are some listeners that maybe are not so familiar with CD-ROMs. So let's tell them what they are, what they were. Maybe. Should I say were?
They are still existing in the trees, for example, because it's very good when you don't want to have birds eating the cherries in your tree. So it's a second life of CD-ROMs. But it was not the goal at the very beginning. And it's an heritage because, for example, at the French National Library, they have more than 50,000 CD-ROMs preserved. Internet Archive has a lot of CD-ROMs also available online. We talk about Internet Archive for Web Archive, but they have also CD-ROMs content and so on. But what is it? The postdoctoral researcher on the project CD East, who started in June, we just started in June, showed a press sample yesterday. It was so good. I have keep it. It's a CD, but full of facts, not music. I like it because, this idea, a CD-ROM is a compact disc read-only memory. What does it mean? It's an optical disc where you can put data. You put this small disc in a CD player and you will access data. It may be databases, text, images, videos, and so on. It was famous, I would say, end of the 80s, during the 90s and beginning of 2000 and so on. Then the web arrived. It was complementary because at some point to connect to the internet, you were also using a CD-ROM because it had the software that would allow you to connect to the internet. But so it's an optical disc that will be full of data and that has been used for several things, like first, storage. I want to keep data because at the time there were no Dropbox, cloud, and so on. There were other options like at the time, floppy disk. And for example, a CD-ROM could store the equivalent of 1,500 floppy disks content. So it was really improvement.
Big step.
Big step for storage. But you could also put databases and give them to your clients or to your users if you were a library. But then it became also a way to access video games, to access a lot of entertainment, pictures, encyclopedia, many content, even erotic content was on CD-ROM at some point. So it was, I would say, just before the web, and for me, it was the missing element in this history of technology. I had written about the Minitel, which is a French artifact, and I think that the younger audience has never heard about Minitel, for sure, and it was a French thing. But then I had written about internet, the web, and in between, for a bit more than 10 years of great success, there were CD-ROMs, and they deserve, I guess, an history too.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I already am, back in my memory of all the times with CD-ROMs, that the fact that, all the drivers you had on CD-ROMs. So it was just, you had to install the drivers, not downloading them, of course, because as you're saying, they were before the internet, but you had the printer and then you had your driver on the CD-ROM, right? Or in general, you were exchanging things with friends, right? They had something, a game, as you're saying, or whatever else. Everything was CD-ROMs. I mean, I still have collections of those because, of course, I'm one of those people who says like, it's my life, all the backups. My father was this person that was always doing backups. So I don't know how many computer backups we have on CD-ROMs, right?
The audience can't see my eye, but you can see them, Anna. And if you have CD-ROMs, you have to come to us. This is, I can launch an open call also to the people who are listening to us. If you have all CD-ROMs, they don't need to go to the trash. You can just contact me and ask me, and I will take your CD-ROMs. You can also donate them or just for a small time because we are planning in 2 years an exhibit in Luxembourg. It will be in Luxembourg City. It will be announced in due time.
So it's not for the cherry trees, I assume.
It can end up in cherry trees, but before it has to be in our exhibit because we want to recreate this environment you were mentioning. The sharewares, do you remember it? And also we had samples of many games that we could also discover on a CD-ROMs, often sold with a magazine or something like that. It was part of our life.
Yes, exactly. And also part of the community, because as you said, we have all the pornography that was there, but also, all the pirate stuff. That's how you got stuff from other, there were those small stalls of pirate software where you could buy things again on CD-ROMs.
And at some point, there were also the arrival of the burner. So at the very beginning, CD-ROMs were read-only memory. You could do nothing but to buy it. It was quite expensive. And for the Louvre and the others, for museums, encyclopedia and so on, at the very beginning, it was very expensive. Then it was better. But then you could also buy CD-ROMs that were rewritable, and you could also burn them and put on them your photographs or new content. And it was also, of course, hacked a lot. And there was piracy and a market that was developing, which links us to the current digital culture, this topic of author rights, privacy, and so on. You have already it in CD-ROMs, and it will move then to the web. And
you can make some comparisons as well. So you said you're planning an exhibition. What else is planned for the project?
So many things that we are really running through time. But a final exhibition with a media archaeological part, because we want people also not just to know about standards and so on, but to put hands on all computer and rediscover all this content. But that's outreach part. But we are, of course, planning a book, because we plan to write maybe not the whole perfect monograph of the CD-ROM, because you can write an industrial history of the CD-ROM with Philips, Sony, and so on. But you can write also a multimedia history of the CD-ROM with interfaces and so on. What we want to do is to address a bit of all this topic into what will be one of the first books related to the history of the CD-ROM. There were some books, I think, of Carl Terrien on the video games on CD-ROMs, but never this kind of history, big picture of the CD-ROM. And then we have many things planned. Currently, for example, we are doing a series of interviews at the EU Publication Office. Why the EU Publication Office? Because we wanted also to have some look at institutions in Luxembourg. We had also interviews with people who were in the media and advertising company at the time. We are starting with this. And at the Publication Office, they started to put the official journal and all the call for public tenders, suppliers, and so on that they had to publish daily on CD-ROMs, because it was so much paper that they had to send through the whole Europe from the Luxembourg station. So in 1997, they started to publish every day a CD-ROM they could send, and this until 2010, when the DVD was used. And we are also having a series of interviews to know how it was created, who made the decision, how it was received by clients, because there is also a professional history, of course, of CD-ROMs. So there will be a story of famous general mainstream CD-ROMs, of course, missed on CD-ROMs for a video game. I mentioned the Louvre, I could mention the Encarta, for example. But there will be also a story of the CD-ROMs as used for databases, used in offices, used for institutions, and so on. And of course, there were jobs developing also. It was the beginning of many designers that then were also working for the web. And so it's also a story between analog and digital. There are so many stories.
You made me also think about when I got excited, I think some of the dictionaries I bought already had a CD-ROM in as well, right? That was just so good that you didn't have to spend all the time looking through all the pages, but you could search within a dictionary as well. From a linguist perspective, this was an important breakthrough for sure.
And the editing world and the printing world was really pioneer in developing this kind of encyclopedia. And we are also trying to rebuild our libraries when into CD-ROMs, because they were really pioneers of the time. And for example, one of the first famous CD-ROMs was published by Grolier. It was a knowledge disk. It was an encyclopedia. And then you had immediately several encyclopedias that followed in between the mid-80s, and the most famous one, it's mostly beginning of the 90s. So Encarta, 93, Encyclopedia Britannica, 94, and so on. And we have a lot of memories here related to this encounter between the printed world and the CD-ROM. And what is interesting is also that the companies behind this encyclopedia sometimes also develop multimedia services, and so they also move to digital content. So it's really meaningful for the history of the digital.
So what remains is to tell the listeners that they have to definitely watch the space and check what you will be writing about and talking about, and then, of course, participate in all the outreach activities as well. I'm sure they will be very, very interesting. I mean, digital media archaeology and hands-on experience is always good because we can talk, but if we don't touch and if we don't try, we don't have the feeling, because I'm sure if I tell my son about how I got excited about CD-ROMs, he will just not understand it at all. But then if you really see how it was, this is completely different. And I guess you can hear from my voice, we are slowly wrapping up. And if we are wrapping up, it means it's the moment to answer the pub quiz question.
I will make it very short, but
yes.
We were searching for one of the biggest memes. In our book, Online Virality, Gabriele Marino made a paper on it, and he called it the biggest meme ever. Because it's a kind of metaphor of virality. It was successful for millions of people. It was so in between the success of Psy with Gangnam Style. If you remember this Korean song that was totally crazy, and the always swimming that we can't perform together here, Anna, because we have carpet, but it is when you go on the floor and you go through an hallway, doing a kind of swimming dance. And so this is did you find it?
Harlem Shake?
Yeah, absolutely. And it became famous in February 2013 and March 2013. Then because of some countries like Tunisia or Egypt saying, okay, you can't perform it in the public space, it will be banned. And there were trials against young people and so on. There was echoes in the press and so on. So that's why I mentioned banning. But it was extremely famous worldwide. It was a music by DJ Bauer, 2 parts. You will have a look. Again, a song you will also not forget. Harlem Shake was in 2 parts, one individual again, and then a kind of charivari and performance, which is this kind of metaphor of virality. It's becoming suddenly totally crazy and so on. And so that's the meme I selected for our quiz.
And it's also fascinating for me in general when dances go viral, right? Because, of course, that's related that you have already also people creating a video where you can watch them dance. But, in general, in the past, Macarena, whatever, why sometimes people just really, everybody, wherever you go, culture, whichever culture, they know that. Like the Harlem Shake, right?
Yeah, and one of my colleagues, Laura Style, she did a special issue related to dance online and so on. I think it's extremely interesting how dance and performance can become viral. And so the Harlem Shake is a meme. A dance can be in some ways a meme. It was adapted and so on. And probably one of the biggest memes we encountered.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Valérie, so much for today. I have to say that it's quite a collection of firsts today, as I said, because we had a rhyming pub quiz question, but I also realized that probably this is going to be the longest show notes because we referred to so many things. So I will have to now go very slowly and share so that people can really discover in case they don't know, because I assume that just like me, some of the things we discussed are really new to them. So I will try to give you as much opportunity as possible so you can check all the memes we talked about and all the different references. And thank you so much for coming and good luck with all the projects.
Thank you, Anna. And please don't forget the CDs project. Come to the exhibition and come with your CD-ROMs.
This is it for today. Don't forget to subscribe, to follow us, to, check what we're saying, what we're doing. There will be loads of new guests coming. And yes, thank you for listening. This was SciLux, and my name is Hanna Siemaszko.